Welcome to The Effective Lawyer, a podcast for ambitious attorneys who want to improve their practice. My name is Jack Zinda, and I'll be your host. In today's episode, we are teaming up with our good friends at Simon Law Group on their Justice Team podcast. We talk about what it takes to run a nationwide practice, how to scale up a law firm, and some of the tips for practicing in multiple states. For context, this conversation took place pre-COVID at the American Association for Justice Convention in San Diego last year. Enjoy.
We have Jack Zinda with us today. He is a Texas-based lawyer, but as you'll find out, he's pretty much in every state in the union.
He's everywhere.
Jack's in the house. Don't mess with Texas.
Great to be here, guys. Thank you.
Sorry you had to fly into this shitty weather and leave beautiful Texas for San Diego. But
this is awful. I'd much rather be back in 110 degrees.
Yeah.
So, Evan, we got Evan with us today, Evan Garcia.
Yep. Fellow Texan, but out here. I saw the light. I'm out here in California and with the Justice Team.
And Grayson Goody.
Hey, good to be here. Wyoming, all from Wyoming. We were just actually discussing how Wyoming is a much better state than Texas. You know, you don't mess with Texas, but
Texas
Wyoming
is a union,
has so much
isn't it?
more. Yeah,
Right? Is Texas a union? No.
Is it?
I mean,
I believe it's its own country.
Yeah.
exactly.
Going to be seceding from the union.
And I
That's
don't
what
think
you
I
meant.
introduced myself. I'm Brandon Simon. Thanks for tuning in. Jack, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, man. It's great to be here.
You're based out of Texas. Tell us a little bit about what you do.
Our firm is based out of Austin. We also have an office in Denver and one in Dallas as well. We do exclusively personal injury cases, just like you guys, primarily trucking, catastrophic injury, and we handle cases not just in Texas and Colorado, but throughout the U.S.
Now, what's the saying? What's the saying about Austin? Is it keep Austin weird?
Keep Austin weird.
What's so weird about Austin?
It's not so
You
weird.
ever been to Austin?
It used to be weird. Now it is like
Now
Tech
it's like too
Central.
cool to be weird,
Yeah,
right?
way
Now
too
it's
cool.
very normal.
It's very hipster. Keep Austin hipster.
Hipsters.
So we have a common link here, like Evan said. Evan's a Texas boy. Houston, born and bred.
H-Town, yep.
A big A&M fan, right? Gig 'em.
Negative. That's the horns. My dad would disown me.
Jack, are you born and bred Texas?
I was born in a small town called Longview in East Texas. It's about 2 hours east of Dallas. You would really have no reason to go there if you were going to Texas.
Well, how's the high school football team in Longview?
Actually, we were pretty good. Number 3 in the country at
What?
a few given points. Yeah.
There you go.
There's a good reason to go.
Yeah. So your main office is in Austin. How many offices do you have?
Right now, we have 3 main offices, one in Austin, one in Denver, and one in Dallas. And we have satellite offices throughout Texas, Colorado, Arizona, and New Mexico. We've got 26 attorneys in the firm. One of them, Neil Solomon's over there. I think
Yeah, there he
he's
is.
10 in
Hey,
the back.
Neil.
Hey guys, how's it going?
You're kind of hidden from view there.
Yeah.
That's it.
Sorry about
I
that.
can't see it,
They
Neil,
threw me
but
in
I
the
can hear
corner.
you. I can hear you, buddy.
So, Neil, you're with Jack as well?
That's correct. Yeah, I'm in the Austin office with Jack.
Okay, right on. So one of the 28.
That's it.
Okay.
Can I ask a question real quick, Jack?
No.
Why are you having your offices all over the country? I mean, you're in how many different states now?
Well, right now we are in Texas, Arizona, New Mexico, and Colorado.
Wow.
And a lot of it is by necessity. So Texas is one of the most anti-consumer, anti-plaintiff states in the country. This is an outdated statistic, but at one point, the Texas Supreme Court was ruling against consumers 89% of the time.
Wow.
And I came into my practice in 2006, just when the biggest tort reform had just been passed in the legislature. So over time, by out of necessity and just good fortune, we've had cases outside of Texas. And we decided to make a move to look for business where it's a little easier to practice law.
Right. And I got a quick question on that, though. When you're looking elsewhere and you're looking for, I guess you could say, just different jurisdictions, I mean, in your experience, what does your team look at? I mean, what are the pros and cons? I mean, obviously, I'd imagine jury pools, but I mean, do you look at caps? I mean, what else is at play there?
Good question.
I think the first thing you have to look at is why are you looking at taking a case outside of your home state? And for us, it's can we add value in some sort of specialization, whether it's a construction case or a trucking case? Do we think we can add value, or is it better to be with a local attorney there? Secondarily, a lot of times it is advantageous to look at what are the different laws in that jurisdiction. So if you have a case where someone's hurt in Texas, but the defendant's based out of Florida and the driver is based out of Minnesota, if you kind of expand your mind and look at all those different options, it allows you to figure out what's best for the client.
Right. Awesome.
And so you have attorneys barred in each of those states, or how does that work?
I'm licensed in Texas, Arizona, New Mexico, and Colorado. Burgess Williams, who's off to the side over there, is licensed in about 15 states.
Wow.
Wow.
One of the things is once you get past the 5-year mark, it's not that difficult to get licensed in other jurisdictions. As long as you stay on the good side of the bar.
That sounds easy, doesn't it?
Yeah. In California, there's no, what they call it, reciprocity. You can only practice in California. You don't get reciprocity in any other states, which seems strange, but I guess they want to keep your property taxes here, right? Or not your property taxes, but your income taxes.
Income taxes, yeah.
Right.
But I feel like, in Wyoming, it's the same thing. You can be in any state as long as you're practicing for 5 years and you're in good standing. You can waive right into Wyoming. So I take it that's probably the same with the states that you guys have been into.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And also, we've been intentional about asking our new attorneys to get licensed in other jurisdictions.
Smart.
And so I think now we have Minnesota, Illinois, New York, New Jersey, D.C., Florida, and so it gives us more options.
So say you got Burgess over there and you have a case that, the driver's in Minnesota. You file that case in Minnesota because you think that's advantageous to file there. Do you just send Burgess out there to litigate it, or are you getting local counsel, or how does that work?
Well, I think first you got to make sure you know what you're doing. I think that is key. You got to know what the rules of civil procedure are, the rules of evidence in that jurisdiction. And then you got to think, does it make sense from the client's point of view to file that case there? And does it make sense from the case point of view and from the firm point of view? You can't take a small case, several thousand miles away. It just doesn't justify it.
So I want to talk a little bit about your practice. You are the namesake of your firm, right? Zinda Law Firm, is that what
Zinda Law Group.
Zinda Law Group, okay. And I'm Simon Law Group. I'm part of the Simon Brothers, and I know how much time is taken up by running the practice and the business side of a law firm. How much of your day is spent actually being a lawyer, and how much of your day is being a manager, an owner of the firm, administrative stuff?
I consider it a victory if I'm able to spend 25% of my time practicing law.
Yeah.
And I feel like that is very difficult at times. We have nearly 80 employees.
80.
And so there's always some fire going on somewhere. And over time, I've had to really narrow the scope of the cases that I handled. 2 years ago, I was working on probably 15 cases at a time. Now it's down to 3.
Yeah.
And that's just out of necessity. There's always something popping up. But I think it's also about being intentional and making sure you're carving out the time to actually practice law, or you find yourself, doing interviews and reviewing spreadsheets all day.
Yeah, so
That's a great point.
The Simon Law Group, we have offices up and down the coast, but we're all in California. We're all relatively close to one another. You have offices thousands of miles away. When a fire goes up, you have to put out a fire. How difficult is that when you're managing cases that are literally another state away?
What's great with technology now, we can get around a lot of those issues. So we use attorneys in other jurisdictions or locations that can have individual client meetings, and we'll talk to the client via Skype and have someone on the ground to help the client there. We do a lot of travel. We probably have more Southwest points than just about anybody.
And drink tickets.
You're
Don't forget
flying
about
through
the drink
Arizona
tickets.
a lot, probably Phoenix a lot. Yeah.
But in a weird way, before when we were handling cases just in Texas, going to Midland is a lot harder than getting to Denver, and so there's a lot of things that if you practice in a big state like California, you're used to driving, you're used to being on the road. And if there's a direct flight, it makes it a lot easier.
Right.
But we've had to really adopt technology to make that a lot easier, I'm sure, as you guys have.
Yeah.
Doing things like DocuSign and video conferencing and those sort of things.
Yeah, video conferencing is big. I imagine if you're handling cases in other states, you're going to have to do a lot of video depositions. We only handle cases in California, but we have, as we've gotten bigger, Grayson, you're doing depots in Pennsylvania or something, and the beauty is you don't have to go to Pennsylvania to go take a deposition.
But I would prefer going to Pennsylvania to take the deposition. I'd never been to Philly. I went to Philly a couple months ago.
You don't want to go to
Did that.
Philly. You can go to Pittsburgh. You don't want to go to Philly.
Well, Pittsburgh, come on. No, we had a depot in
You're fired.
Switzerland. We had a I'm looking at Bob. He didn't even catch it. Good. We had a depot in Switzerland, and Bob had the opportunity to take it via Skype, and he was like, I think I'm going to go to Switzerland.
Yeah,
So there's places you want to go. And
I don't even think that was his
don't
case.
wanna
He
go.
just
it was
I'm
my
the partner.
case.
I'm
It was
I'm
my
pulling
case.
rank. I want to
Yeah.
go to Switzerland.
Zinda Law Group is a plaintiff's personal injury law firm made up of over 30 lawyers that handle catastrophic personal injury and wrongful death cases throughout the United States. We regularly co-counsel and joint venture with firms across the country. Over the last several years, we have paid millions of dollars in joint venture co-counsel fees to the law firms we work with. If you are a law firm or attorney and have a catastrophic personal injury or wrongful death case you would like to joint venture or work with Zinda Law Group on, please reach out to us at 800-863-5312 or email us at info@zdfirm.com and we can set up a time to discuss your case.
So, Jack, let's get to know you a little bit more on a personal level. Born and raised Texas boy. Baylor undergrad?
Went to Baylor, Southwestern for undergrad.
Okay.
It's a tiny school of about 1,200 students. We actually didn't even
And
have
you
a
were an
football
athlete,
team.
right?
Supposedly. I think it was Division III, so it barely
Hey.
qualifies as being an
Better
athlete.
than Division Zero.
Yeah.
It's Division Zero basketball. Yeah. So, you baseball,
this guy
you
all-star
baseball player?
here.
Basketball player.
Basketball. Okay.
What's Division Zero? Is that it, like intramurals where we
Yeah,
lose
San
every
Diego
game?
City
And-
League. Yeah, yeah.
We were on
Yeah.
the same team.
Yeah.
We were on the same team.
But when I was in law school, I was known as the good basketball player, which is not what you want to be known for in law school. You want to be known as the guy on law review.
Grayson was the good. Grayson was the
He's
good
both,
basketball
I guess,
player.
yeah.
Yeah, I was on law review too, so I got a double
Yeah, you
whammy
got a
there.
leg up on me.
What position do you play?
Two guard.
Okay,
Two guard.
cool.
So, and I've got a
I
wife.
love that. That's awesome.
Yeah, and two kids, 8 and 6 years
So
old.
how stressful? I mean, I know I get yelled at by my wife a lot. Always on the phone, working. I mean, how do you managing a firm and then also time with family?
You know, I think with everything in life that's important, you've got to be intentional. I think that is one of the big takeaways that I've learned the hard way over the years. And I used to work, 7 days a week, every waking minute. But now with kids, I've found ways to manage my time by saying, for example, Saturday is off limits for work, unless just absolutely necessary. And then I usually pick things back up, Sunday evening. But if you don't do that, if you don't carve out that time, the law and your business will consume everything.
Right.
I've also found that I'm a better lawyer if I take a break. Going for a run, playing with my kids, my mind gets refreshed.
Yeah.
And I tell that to the younger associates too. I think there's a diminishing return on working, so many hours. If you're working, and by the way, I know very few people that actually work 80 hours. You hear that a lot. I worked 80 hours this week. How much of that was actually productive? How much of that did you actually get
Intentional.
stuff done
Yeah, I like that.
versus you just sat at your desk, stressed out about all the work you had to do?
Yeah, balance is so important. Balance is so important. I've found, and I've forced myself to do this, is after every trial, I'll try to get out and take like 3 or 4 days where I'm just like, take care of the things that need to be taken care of. Laundry, hanging out with my wife,
The cat.
going to the beach. Don't forget about the kitties. Going shooting hoops or something like that. Having that balance is so important as an attorney, and it's good that you're telling your younger attorneys that.
And Jack, I think to follow up on that, I think you've said it a few times, and I think it really resonates, is this idea of being, intentional. So either intentionally hang out with your kids, separate, work from real life or, family time. And then, likewise, if you're at your desk, I mean, are you really being productive? Are you really being, good with and smart with your time?
Or is Evan coming into your office and playing your arcade
exactly.
machine?
Well, we call that arcade
Who's
machine.
got an arcade machine in their office?
We call it the malpractice machine.
Yeah, not practice machine. But is it something that, do you share with Neil, some of this insight? As far as, being intentional, is this something is that like part of your firm values? Or anything
I
like
think
that?
one thing we try to do is take things that work throughout the firm and create processes and systems that we can give to the other attorneys. I'm sure you guys have seen this. One of the most expensive, important decisions you make in a case is hiring an expert witness, right? Mm-hmm. And so how do you train a 3 to 5 year attorney to make a good decision that could be a $50,000 investment? So we've done things to create processes to make that possible. And I think with everything, it's about creating systems and being intentional in that standpoint.
I just got handed a viewer question live. I think we got a live viewer question.
I'm looking at Burgess over there.
It's from Dina Joseph. So shout out to Dina. Her email is, she's at Sun Ocean Skies. So Dina Joseph at Sun Ocean Skies. interested in specializing in catastrophic personal injury TBIs. So any specialized courses, seminars, organizations, anything that they could consider doing while they were in law school to kind of shift their way towards that area of the law?
I mean, I think one, getting involved in organizations like AAJ early is helpful, but also if you want to be involved in, for example, traumatic brain injury, learn the medicine. I think that is one of the most undervalued areas of being a personal injury lawyer is figuring out what's the latest on how brain injury cases work. If that's an area of focus that you want to go into, then do clerkships, get to know PI lawyers, make sure that's what you actually want to do. I think when you come out of law school, you need to have a plan. Where do you want to see your practice, at least 2-3 years, and not just let it, come hit you. But I'd say local trial lawyers associations are great, AJ is great, and then if traumatic brain injury is where you want to be, learn the latest, information on diffuse tensor imaging, the latest studies on concussions, how those things work, if that's really where you want to have your focus.
And before we get you get out of here, I want to ask you. I mean, you're expanding constantly. Is there another area of the map you're looking to conquer?
What we've really focused on recently is focusing on types of cases opposed to geography. So when we say nationwide practice, it's not specifically saying, okay, we're going to take 100 cases in New York or 100 cases in California. It's more of, for this particular type of case, trucking, for example, where's the best jurisdiction? Where does that make sense? And looking at the U.S. as the map opposed to just whatever state you're in.
Right.
Interesting.
Smart.
Just curious, is there a particular area of the country that is more prone to, say paraplegic cases or, anything that's worth 8 figures?
Just curious. Not that we're looking to get
just came into
that
my
area
head.
of the country, but
Unfortunately, I don't know of one.
Where do the most airplane crashes take place? Cool. You guys have any other fun? You guys are Texas boys.
Yeah,
I mean,
well, I got a question though, and I think this is, Jack and I, we spoke about this, briefly before we got on here. It's news to me, but apparently in Colorado, there's a cap on the non-economic damages. I mean, what is there pending legislation? Are people trying to do something about that? I mean,
is
what's
that
going
for
on
all?
with
Is that for all personal injury cases?
Yeah, it's for all personal injury cases. The cap is 437 right now, I believe.
It's a very specific number.
It's
and that's
anything above 437.
That's a progressive state too.
It increases for inflation, and you got to keep in mind.
Someone was high when they got to that number, right?
Yeah.
In Colorado. Yeah.
Should we do 420? No. Let's do 437.
We got to count for inflation, man.
The good thing about Colorado is there's no cap on physical impairment. So there's a way you can get, so pain and suffering is capped, physical impairment is not.
Okay.
And there's no cap on economic damages. But there's also, Texas, for example, we've got the collateral source issue of paid versus incurred, where you can only get whatever was paid. So, for example,
California,
if you've got a person who is on Medicaid, their case is worth a lot less, unfortunately, than someone who didn't have health insurance.
Right.
In Texas, is there, so in California, we have a law now that says if somebody treats on a lien, and say they just forewent their insurance and treated on a lien, the reasonable value is not based on insurance. So you're not allowed to talk about insurance. Can you do that in Texas? Can you still talk about collateral sources even though they treated on a lien basis, or is that?
No, you can't talk about collateral source, although they're trying to chip away at that.
Yeah.
One thing we were talking about beforehand is, with the Supreme Court that is very pro-insurance, our goal is to keep those cases out of the appellate courts because that's probably where they would go next. It's typically not the legislature anymore. It's more of the courts that are turning those things over.
Very conservative courts. Are we on like a time crunch here, or do we have to stop sometime soon?
I don't know. I'm not the producer.
Well, I don't even see the producer, so let's just keep talking.
Okay.
Yeah, Jack, can I ask you a question?
Yeah,
so when you came out of law school, did you know that you were going to do this type of work? Is this what you wanted to do?
Well, it's funny. I thought it's really cool how you guys have a family practice. My dad told me that's what I was going to do, but I didn't believe him.
Was your dad an attorney?
No, he was actually a restaurant owner. And that was some of the best training to be a trial lawyer. So, at age 12, 13, I'm a dishwasher at my dad's bar working with, minimum wage workers. Some had felony records, and then waiting tables. And we had the only bar in town. And so learning how to deal with people, that was great training. But out of law school, I worked at a firm that did family law and personal injury. And it was kind of a crazy situation. They hired me to start the PI section out of law school, which in retrospect is a little nuts.
A little.
We trust you more than we trust ourselves.
Yeah.
Go, just run with it. That's great.
Well, you
it
have time
worked,
to
I
figure it
guess.
out. Go ahead.
It worked.
It worked,
Right.
I'm very lucky. The person that I worked for gave me a lot of autonomy, let me learn how to run the firm, and gave me a lot of freedom to run the marketing of the firm, the business processes. And so after doing that for a couple of years, it just made sense to branch out on my own.
It's probably an unintentional training for you to start
Yeah.
your own firm.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And one thing I'd say, if you're considering starting a PI practice now, I would advise you to consider teaming up with someone who's got good cash flow and hourly practice. You know, in the beginning of our practice, we had an hourly section that we phased out about 3 or 4 years ago. And that really allowed us to take some more risks on bigger PI cases earlier because you had that cash flow coming in opposed to having a high interest loan or something like that.
And speaking of risks, what really made you decide to branch out from that firm? I think some of our younger viewers would like to, and listeners would like to hear this. They're working in bigger firms or working with other people. What made you want to take that jump and go out and start your own firm?
The biggest thing for me was having autonomy on the types of cases I wanted to work on, how I wanted my practice to go, what I wanted my balance to be work-life, and what I thought the vision, where I wanted to take the organization. And those kind of conflicted to where I was at. But I was very lucky because the position at that firm, I was put in charge of a lot of those business decisions already, so it didn't seem like that much of a risk. And I grew up around my dad who had a restaurant, which is, 4 out of 5 restaurants go out of business in the first 6 months.
Crazy.
And
You don't make money until,
it takes
if you're
forever.
lucky, several years, right?
Yeah, and so I kind of had that risk built into my DNA.
You
And
bet on
so-
yourself, too.
Yeah, and it didn't seem risky.
Yeah. Well, I'm getting a note from Teresa that we're going to have to wrap it up. Before we go, I want to ask, who's your favorite Texas athlete of all time?
Emmett Smith, hands down.
Ooh,
Nice.
I love it. I got an Emmett Smith rookie card, actually.
What?
I
If you're
do.
interested.
Yeah,
I
they
do.
yeah.
I think the value's
Top
gone down
flight.
over the
No,
years.
no
Yeah,
problem.
it's top flight.
Thank you for listening, and a big thanks to our friends over at the Simon Law Group. Please check out their podcast, The Justice Team. We hope you enjoyed the show and found some of our tips and tactics for running a nationwide practice helpful and will hopefully help you grow your practice. Until next time, thanks for listening.
Thank you for taking the time to listen to this episode of The Effective Lawyer. If you enjoyed this podcast, please take a moment to rate it 5 stars and leave us a review. To get notified about new episodes that are upcoming or have been released, go to zdfirm.com/podcast to sign up for our mailing list.